I have
resilient faith.
I have resilient faith.
I am voting because it is my right.
Because I know how important it is for me to exercise the rights for which my ancestors fought.
I vote.
I am voting
because it's my responsibility.
It's my responsibility.
Because issues on the down ticket matter just as much as the presidential election.
Because it is
my duty.
My right.
My life depends on it.
My vote matters.
Because my voice matters.
Welcome everybody to another installment of the Communal Conversations series. Tonight we have a communal duty where Howard students will discuss their roles and responsibilities in altering the political landscape. Communal Conversation series was actually started to give Howard students an opportunity to express the range of emotions and feelings and thoughts that they have about everything that's going on, especially in this virtual space. So we want to keep this sacred and safe space that it is. Please remember to remain respectful, be kind as these students give their thoughts. And, you can share with us in the comments, but again, be respectful to the students and to those who are sharing with us as well. So what we're going to do now is we are going to start by introducing each of our students one by one.
Hello, good evening. My name is Russell Edmonds. I am a senior mechanical engineering major from Northern Virginia, and I'm the immediate past president of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated Alpha Chapter.
Good evening. My name is Peter Lumbella. I'm a senior political science major, sociology minor at Howard University from Denver, Colorado, by way of the refugee camp Nyarugusu in Tanzania, and I serve as a bossless, aka president of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated Alpha Chapter. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sydney Montgomery. I am a senior sociology and political science double major, legal communications minor from Chino Hills, California, and I serve as the executive student director for Howard University Alternative Spring Break.
Hello, everybody. My name is David Robinson. I'm a senior political science major from Orlando, Florida, and I serve as the president of the Howard University Chapel Assistants.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ayana Sally. I'm a junior political science major English minor from Chester, Virginia, and I'm currently serving as a political action chair for Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated Alpha Chapter.
Welcome, everybody. So before we begin, we're going to have David just give us a quick prayer, and then we'll start with some questions.
All right, of course. Everyone, please bow your heads as we pray. Lord, we thank you for bringing us here today for this lovely event. We hope it is very fruitful with the conversation and discussion, and that we can create a fruitful dialogue that will hopefully enchant the current outcome of the elections, and as well as unite this country as a whole as the election, hopefully, as we move forward with that election. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Oh, Erica, I just want to shout out Erica commenting tonight. Everybody, please pray for Erica. She's not feeling well, but we are just excited to get her back as soon as possible. So I'm going to start off with a quick, easy yes or no question, and you all can answer in the chat as well. Have you already voted? Russell?
Yes. I did early voting in person in Virginia.
Cool. Peter?
Yes, I went back home this past couple of weeks, and I made sure to vote.
Okay. What about you, Sydney? Okay, Sydney might be frozen. David?
I'm back home in Orlando, so I did vote in person, just early voting a couple weeks ago.
Okay. Ayana?
No. I plan to vote in person tomorrow.
Okay, cool. Sydney, do we have you back?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, here you are.
Yes, I voted.
Good. I also voted. I went the first day of early voting in Maryland. It wasn't too bad, actually. An hour wait, but easy. I'm glad that you all have voted, or in Ayana's case, you have a plan to vote. Because, I know there's been a lot of pressure on young people, especially people your age, college age students, to get out and vote this election. But kind of the conversation that we tend to hear from that age is like, I don't feel like my vote actually matters. So how effective do you all think that your vote actually is in this election? Can we have Russell answer that?
Yeah, I think it's like tremendously important. I think, if everyone has that mindset of, oh, my vote matters, that, that can tilt the polls, in some states where elections are decided by a couple of hundred, votes, that makes a big difference with a couple people changing that mindset. And especially young people, once you get in the habit of voting, you do it for a lifetime. So that's, it's tremendously important for us to get out and start voting early.
Absolutely. Sydney, what about you?
So similar to what Russell said, I'm a firm believer in our ancestors fought and died for us to have this right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would be a shame for us to not utilize and exercise that. So definitely your vote and your voice do matter. I would want to encourage people to remind themselves that there's so many people who wish that they could vote. And so utilize that, exercise your right, and it'll count.
Peter?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. No, I think voting is essential. And I think as young people, it's our responsibility to vote. I think one thing I do want to say is, I think as young people, we have taken ownership of our responsibility to vote, especially at Howard right now, even as on this panel where as young leaders, we've worked nonstop to make sure we can vote, to make sure our peers do vote. But I think the work isn't done yet. So let's make sure other people vote too as well. But we got to vote. It's a must.
That's excellent. These are all excellent answers, actually. You guys, I'm looking forward, honestly, to a very, very great panel tonight. I think I always say that Howard students are the best. So speaking of work and fighting, what are the big items that you all are kind of fighting for on this ticket? What things do you see as most important to you to focus on when you go into the ballot? Ayana?
I think I put a lot of emphasis outside of just like the president nominations, but also knowing what amendments, like state amendments that you're voting on, that people realize that at a local level, there are also things that happen. Like I know in quite a few ballots, it's whether or not disabled veterans should be taxed, like property taxes and stuff like that. But then also, if you think about, I think it was 2018 when we had the blue wave, when Democrats took over the House, what we've seen by like the Supreme Court nomination is that the House is not really the power. The Senate is the power. So therefore, Democrats need 4 more seats to also take over the Senate and have control of the Congress. So I think a big part of like the ballot is also knowing your senators and who you're going to vote for and paying more attention to those other things that just aren't the president nominations.
Wow. Okay, David, what about you?
For sure. Like when I was looking through my ballot, because I originally got a mail-in ballot, so I had ample time to like actually read through and like research like who's running for what. It trickles down to more than just like what agenda is going to happen. Like I had to vote for specific judicial circuits, whether or not to keep them there. I had to vote for my tax collector. I had to vote for all types of amendments. And those have actual like real ramifications. Like I remember in 2016, I turned 18 the day of the election. So I barely made it to vote last time. And we had to vote for, at least for Florida, I think it was Amendment 4, it was the right for felons to vote inside of that state, which was granting the right to like, I think 4 million potential voters that had currently been disenfranchised through the current legislature. So just changing that, and it's still fighting right now in the court. So it's just, there's ramifications that happen, at least to this day, we're fighting about it. So it's essential, really.
Wow. Sydney, do you have anything that you're really passionate about?
No, I definitely agree. Kind of just to add on to what has already been said, California is one of those states where we vote on like 10,000 different propositions every 2 years. And so I think being able to really sit down and digest what those propositions are and how they'll affect our community in particular, I think that's very crucial. So I definitely encourage people to read I know nowadays a lot of different organizations, they'll come out with like little cheat sheets for you to understand if this is you, this is your party, this is what's going to happen if you say yes or no to Prop 15, 24, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just definitely encourage people to actually read and take the time to process, because your vote will count and your vote will matter towards whatever the outcome is.
That's actually a great segue into the next question that I have. How have you guys actually prepared yourselves to vote? I know that, especially because we're not just voting for the president, we're voting down ballot. How have you guys actually prepared, to go into that little box and decide what you're going to vote on or how you're going to vote? And let's start with Peter.
For me, it just a lot of conversation. Where in Denver, where I'm from, I'm very, very involved in the political climate. And so for me, it's reaching out to like campaign managers, reaching out to candidates themselves too. But also as well, not a lot of people don't have the luxury. So, but like just doing research, going on Google and looking up the ballot. Yesterday, I made sure to look at the ballot once again. I'm really passionate on making sure we put the right judges in place. And so you can always go online and look up ballots and everything. Get involved, talk to people in the community. That's always a good way to like see what's happening and just to like get a different perspective on what's on the ballot. So talking to people and doing Google.
Definitely. Ayana?
I'm not gonna say I did as much talking in my opinion. And Russell's from Virginia too, so he can disagree with me. But like my part of Virginia, I feel like is very black and white. So when it came to preparing for the ballot, I think it was easy for which direction I wanted to pick and where I want to go. The most research I had to do was really the amendments. But when it's coming to like the people on the ballot, I didn't feel like I looked into it, but because things are so black and white and I have like a clear viewpoint of what I want and the way I see things, I didn't have to do as much like reaching out.
Okay. Well, Russell, do you want to agree or disagree?
Yeah, it was pretty similar for me in Virginia. I went through every candidate on the ballot. I got a sample ballot, checked out every candidate, went to their website, and there are certain issues that I find are most important. I just looked at what their take on those particular issues are and just went from there. But it was pretty straightforward, I found, just doing it that way.
Okay, and Sydney and David, I want you guys to get in on this conversation too. What did you do to prepare yourselves?
I'll let David go if he wants to go.
Yeah, not a problem. I mean, of course, like I'm back at home, so they're like local campaigns are sending me like newsletters, pamphlets, leaflets. Even if like you're just staying at home, like they're still reaching out to you. And I try to reach out to like locally, at least virtually whenever I can, to see like council meetings and to see if I can tap in to see how that discussion is going and how politically like my little city of Orlando is doing. So yeah, I'm making it work through this kind of pandemic.
No, I definitely agree with David. And I think on top of that, like besides all of the political spam ads that you get, kind of a couple of weeks before the election, I think for me specifically, I have like an inside opportunity. So I actually work for my own congressman for my district. And so I think being able to kind of see the inside of those things has really, really helped on a different scale than if I were to just, kind of watch on TV and kind of do my own surfing the web about which candidates that I wanted to vote for.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you guys actually prepared. I know preparing for elections is not my strong point. I'm going to be honest. I hate preparing for elections. Yes, we agree, D. Richardson. Our students absolutely are amazing. Preparing for elections is hard. And I think that this election has been even harder to prepare for, not just because, obviously we know the candidates. To me, those were easy choices a little bit. Well, preparing for going to vote in a pandemic, how has that, this pandemic completely shifted or how has it shifted it at all? Like how you actually approached going to vote? And let's start with David.
Yeah, for sure. So I originally had a mail-in ballot because that's what I did. Voted in 2016, voted in 2018. Mail-in ballot, something of the like, just drop it in the drop box. But my mail-in ballot for this election was actually already sealed up when it came in, and there's only one envelope that I can have that's my name on and everything, and I couldn't just open it. So it was I had to surrender it and then vote in person. It was about a 2-hour process, but put my mask on with my mom, and then went in there and we just did it. So we just had to make do, basically. Lines were a lot longer because of 6 feet apart, but that was really the main takeaway.
Wow. Well, what about you, Peter?
What was the question again? Sorry, I got lost in it.
No, how has the pandemic adjusted how you actually prepared to go and vote?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think that the pandemic has like really changed how I'm going about voting. I feel like the pandemic did give me a lot of time though, and an opportunity to like really like dive into the issues that are I hand right now. And so I'm more passionate about voting because of the pandemic and like the activity that took place during the pandemic. But I think the voting process is still the same, but regardless of the obstacles.
Okay. Russell, what about you?
Yeah, I'm used to doing a mail-in ballot, so I prepared to do that for this election. I think with just kind of what happened over the summer in the executive branch with the issue with the post office, my dad and I were like, I think since we should vote in person, vote early to make sure we're counted. Don't have to worry about any issues. I know I still have friends today that they just got their mail-in ballots like a couple of days ago, and they don't know if they're going to be counted in time. So we just want to avoid all those kind of potential headaches with this election.
Definitely. Okay, so I'm going to go back a little bit to a comment that David actually made about obviously some of those down ballot questions that we're still fighting in the courts. Have you all thought, I know obviously voting is not the last step in your civic engagement. So have you all thought about next steps, like what happens, no matter who wins? Have you thought about what happens after tomorrow? Ayana?
I'm gonna be honest with you, no. I'm kind of like right now, I'm just praying to see how tomorrow will. But I don't even think the ballots will be counted by tomorrow. So like by the end of the week, and really just having to take it in stride. I am nervous to start planning for either direction because honestly, next thing you know, it'll be one thing. Then we're in a race war, and then the government's gone. So I'm just waiting to see like what's gonna happen before I've really taken the steps to start planning new things.
Wow, I can definitely understand that. Sydney?
No, I definitely agree with Ayana. Like, I feel like I'm trying to process these next 24, 48, possibly to the end of the week hours. And then after that, then maybe start planning for next steps. But I think the key thing to realize is that regardless of who wins, we're still going to have the same issues going on. And it's about how we handle it and how we move forward and try to mobilize off of that. So
I agree. I think that's definitely been the struggle is like, do we try to get through this week or do we plan out? Because this year has been so crazy. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But no, this year has been so unpredictable. I can definitely understand that it's tough to like just try to see like, what am I going to do past tomorrow? So I definitely feel you guys. And so we're about halfway through. I'm going to give us a short interlude. And during this interlude, you guys think of questions that you have for our students because they want to answer some comments from the audience as well. Okay. So thank you guys. And we'll be right back.
Shine. When will we realize God is on our side? He hides us in His arms, protecting us from harm. It's good to realize
Wow. One thing I love is seeing Howard and their students doing service. I mean, come on. I know you guys actually saw all of our students in those photos scattered throughout. And it's not just, with their organizations that they do work, they do it privately as well. They're just awesome students, awesome scholars, awesome people in the world, right? Actually, I was going to ask a question, but I see there's a question in the comments, and I think I want to take this before we get into more questions. So Joseph Diller asks, how did the social unrest after the death of George Floyd affect your civic engagement? Okay, can we start with Sydney?
Yes, I'll go. Really great question. I think for me personally, at the time, I felt really defeated just because in my head, I was like, wow, another one. And so I think for me, it was just more of where do we go from here? How do we get up and actually produce positive change and actually mobilize and create that change? And so, seeing the protests that happened throughout the summer, being able to see Howard students involved in those protests throughout the summer, I think that was definitely a good first step. And kind of setting up the stage for what it is that we need to do next. So,
awesome. Russell, can you answer that question as well?
Yeah, I'll say, his death was tragic, and I think it jolted, definitely myself, but I think a lot of people to say, I don't know what we're going to do. We have to do something because the status quo is just not going to work. And I've kind of used that as energy and inspiration to encourage people to vote, encourage people to stay involved and hold politicians accountable because these are individuals, but the decisions are made by groups of people that are in power. So using that as momentum as a call to action.
Awesome. We have some more great questions. Can we take the question from Rev Anna? Actually, I think that's a really good question and segues from, yeah. So how do you feel that your friends and family have a greater level of commitment to voting now in comparison to 2016? And I would add to that question, do you feel that the circumstances of the past 4 years have affected that? Ayana?
I think for my family, their level of commitment has been the same. It's been strong and it's stayed strong. Mm-hmm. I think my friends though, 2016 really changed everyone. I was still in high school, so my teacher actually made us watch the inauguration speech. And then 3 days later, these guys showed up and parked their cars with Confederate flags up on the back of their trucks in the student parking lot. And it sparked a frenzy across the entire school. And that was the one time I ever felt I always felt I was the political one and my friends weren't. That was the one time I really saw them back me, and it was kind of us three against the whole classroom. But since then, and of the 4 years, their level of commitment to voting and to just being more vocal on social media has just grown greatly. So yeah.
Wow. What about you, David? I know you're in Florida. I don't know. Does that change anything?
Right. 2016 was definitely a drastically different time than 2020 seems to be heading. But with that, there's also been a more political maturity, I guess, in my friends my age, and their understanding, their vote does have consequences, it does have power, and it is a tool. So they're using that as just one of their political voices that they have to kind of exert just because they're fighting for their future and they're fighting for their rights, and they understand now they have to have their hands on the wheels as they drive this country. They can't just kind of have it on autopilot because it's not going to do what they want, what's going to work for them. So
definitely. I think that that's something that's really, really important to mention, that it really is a tool that we have in our hands to actually affect change. And speaking of that tool, obviously that tool has been kind of taken away from us in a lot of ways, or try to be strategically taken away from us. We've seen a lot of voter suppression happening across the country. And I just want to ask you guys how you all have been experiencing voter suppression, if you've been experiencing it, and how you've seen people combat it in your communities. Peter, can we start with you?
Yeah, for me, the way that I see my community standing against voter suppression is by being vocal about the importance of voting. I feel like throughout like this election 2016, the narrative was my vote doesn't matter. And I think now, because of the past 4 years, everybody in my community is like up in arms about, we really got to get out and vote. We really got to get out and vote. We really got to get out and vote. And so for me, it's just like, it's beautiful. It's powerful to see my community just like stand up and rise and say, take ownership over like voting all together. And so just educating other people around me, that's how my community is standing up and holding people responsible to vote.
Okay, what about you, Russell?
I'll say that I think, voter suppression is one of those things where if you take proactive steps, you can kind of work around it. It's a lot of where they catch people is when they don't know the full process. So I think, really the big push has just been to educate people on different ways you can vote, different tactics of voter suppression that are used so you can navigate sort of those difficult tasks. Like I said, for myself, I was like, I make sure I'm voting in person. That way my mail's not going to get lost. I don't want it to get caught up in any sort of political kind of issues. So just making sure you educate people on the different tactics.
Oh, cool. Okay. And Sydney, what about you?
No, I definitely agree with Russell. Like for me, my family and I, we all had our voting plan months ago, I guess you could say, and I think it was just really interesting. California kind of did this thing where they sent out everybody an actual mail-in ballot just because, they're trying to mitigate the pandemic, any spread. And so I think even with that, whether people actually mailed them back or they dropped them off at the drop boxes or they went and actually just handed them into the polls, I think those were ways to kind of combat any type of voter suppression that could potentially have occurred as of now, the week of. So I think it was just really smart for people to kind of understand what was really at stake.
That's really important. And this question is actually in the comments, but I'm going to ask it and then we'll have a couple more questions before we close out. I know some of you all are in Greek letter organizations, and obviously there have been some national pushes. What have your organizations been doing to really get out the vote? Can we start with Ayana?
Yes, I think virtually, obviously things were different, but I can say like for Alpha Chapter, at least we've organized 2 different phone bankings and have reached, but we specifically did it through actually one of my sisters who works for the Ohio's Women Alliance, because Ohio's that state that's just like, you don't know what's going on. So we did 2 big phone bankings in their state. We've done what's the word? It's the thing. It's called Zetas on the Hill, but basically like a bunch of grad chapter Zetas come together and they go to Capitol Hill and they speak with representatives from their home states and just talk about different legislative and different things that they could push. So in terms of COVID, they were able to do Zetas on the Hill this year, but it has been something they've done leading up to this election and just trying to reach out, have town halls, do phone bankings, any way to reach voters that we can.
Awesome. What about you, Russell?
So yeah, our chapter, we also did phone banking at a national level. If I get another email from Sigma telling me to tell everyone else to vote, like I'm so ready for the election to be over. But there's been a serious push to get chapters to educate people on voting, different steps they need to take. And it's been honestly great seeing how the D9 org collectively has kind of come together and rallied for this particular election.
Absolutely. Peter, can you hop in on that too?
Yeah, and I was gonna say, Omega Men are everywhere, just working, trying to empower everybody and uplift everybody to vote. For me, like my chapter alone, right, Alpha chapter, like all our members are vocal about like the importance of voting. We're very active in our social media. We just did something with the MPHC about I registered to vote, so we took photos with the caption "I registered to vote," and also just back home, right, where I went back home for a voter registration drive. And there was a Mega Men throughout the whole, like it was a drive-through. So like you're just walking around and there's a Mega Men everywhere. And so it's like, it's a reunion damn near. And so like what it is, it's just like we're everywhere, we're really active about it. Voter registration is something we do in our fraternity. That's one of our pillars. That's one of our big programs that we focus on. And so just the other day, all the national presidents were in the panel, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. We want to make sure we're out there. So it's really big.
Absolutely. We have a really great question for Ayana in the the comments. Ayana, so did you try to talk with those who didn't see things?
So unfortunately, I am a Spring 20 initiate of Zeta. So when they did this, I was not in the organization. I don't know if maybe like an individual person was like, I'm going to talk to the other side. But yeah, I can't really speak from experience on that one. I'm sorry.
Did anybody else have an experience where they, I don't know, discussed with somebody who had some different political views? Maybe? No.
Oh, actually, yeah. It's more engaging that way, honestly. I would like to try to rationalize the both sides argument, and it's definitely a journey. So yeah, when you see something from like a different political perspective, like you got to think of like, okay, they want the best for America, you want the best for America, and you got to try to work your way through their logic and reason and where they're coming from. So you have to have a level of empathy, you have to have a level of compassion, and it can get pretty heated. Obviously, we're talking politics, and it can get pretty heated. So you have to kind of like keep that rationale in mind that we all still are people. So we have to try to at least come together in some way, shape, or form. It's very tricky though.
I think that's an excellent answer. Definitely meet people at their values, but also approach with empathy and compassion. I think we can all learn from that. Not only for this election cycle, but just in general, definitely meet people where they are. Speaking of empathy and compassion, have you all created a care plan? I know that this is something that's kind of been talked about lately on Twitter. Have you all kind of created a care plan for yourselves for whatever happens tomorrow? How do you plan to take care of your mental health, your physical health after the results? Obviously, the results may not be here tomorrow, but let's start with Sydney on this.
I'll say for me, I definitely am going to take a social media break, especially if the odds are not in the favor that we want them to be. I think that's just going to be a definite go-to first thing. It's just to try to, take a break, take a step back, and figure out what to do next.
Yeah, I think that might be in the plan for all of us, deleting Twitter and Instagram and maybe especially Facebook off the phone real quick. What about you, Ayana?
I've already been done with Twitter. I don't need to be infuriated that early in the morning. So I still have it, but I've definitely checked it a lot less. So I didn't even know this care plan until you just said it. I'm definitely an emotional eater. So I think the first night, depending on how this is going to go, it's going to be a little stress eating.
Okay.
But then after that, I think all of us up here as activists, as people who want to do things in the community, from there, like, what makes me feel better is knowing I'm trying to do something and I'm trying to invoke change. So at some point, I'm just going to have to put my feelings aside and just get back to work.
Wow. Russell, can you get in on this care plan?
Yeah, I cannot delete social media. That just make me more scared. But my care plan is just to manage expectations. Like, just know that we very well might not know the results for maybe the entire month of November. So just managing expectations and staying in touch with my friends and making sure we're all finding other ways to distract ourselves from the madness that I'm sure is going to ensue.
I definitely agree with all of that. I will be stress eating likely. I will probably be deleting these things off of my phone. I may not be able to handle that. And maybe do not disturb will go on for a little bit. So we're going to ask this last question, and I want all of you all to answer as Howard students. From Erica Middleton. What does this election mean for the Howard community, especially with Kamala Harris being on the Democratic ticket? And let's start, we'll just go in alphabetical order, and we're going to start with Russell.
Oh, wow. I mean, this is everything. I mean, when you arrive at Howard, they tell you can be anything. Like, Howard produces the greatest X, Y, and Z. So to see the first, serious woman vice president, or potential first woman vice president, the first Black vice, like, all of that is a Howard woman as member of the D9. Like, that is incredibly inspiring, and it kind of validates everything that we know to be true about our university. And it's just amazing to see someone of her stature in the mainstream, which is it's been great to watch.
Definitely an alpha woman, just to be specific. Peter, what about you?
It feels like a dream. It feels like a dream. Yeah, like what Russell said, I came to Howard for me, and Howard is supposed to be the greatest place to capstone of Black education, the Mecca. And so just me being a Howard student right now, the fact that like the potential vice president is gonna be a Howard student, and it's gonna be a Black woman, I feel like I'm living the dream. I feel like I'm the best place in the world. I feel like Kamala Harris being at Howard just affirms my decision to come to Howard. So it feels like a dream. I love it.
Excellent. What about you, Sydney?
No, I definitely agree with the guys, and I think it's just really important. Like, it just really shows who we are as Howard University. I also think, to take it a step further, the 150th anniversary for Howard, it was the time is now. And I think that's so critical because now is the time for us to get out and do the work behind what that really means. I think that really just set the stage for, Howard was ahead of the game. They said, look, the time is now. And so here we are, 2 years later, and just really about to really see the change that hopefully the change that we want to see.
Definitely. David, can you answer?
Yeah, it's quite spectacular. I mean, hypothetically, potentially Kamala could be the first non-Ivy League graduate to actually ever be the vice president, which is, of course, groundbreaking outside of gender. It's just it's, I guess, another means of access. And I mean, even for the Howard community, one thing to consider, I guess, is the idea of the idea, I guess, of critical race theory and how that is being kind of floated around as something that potentially to consider, whether it is good or bad. Just it's something that I've at least come into contact with fairly enough at Howard University. So that's also kind of on the ballot as a Howard University student. So that's kind of what we're voting for, really.
Wow. And our final word from a Black woman. Let's hear it.
I mean, there's nothing I can say that hasn't already been said. It's literally her being up there enough is to make you speechless because it just shows what Howard's about and what Black women can do. But besides Howard, just talking about HBCUs and just bringing us back to where we came from, to know you can be in a sorority. Some people see that as an uppity kind of two-shed type thing. No, you can be in a sorority. You can go to a historically Black college university. You can still get that diverse background that you want to get. And then to do it as a Black woman, just think of the words of Malcolm X. We are the most looked down upon. Black women get the bad rep. We get all the trash, but just to see Kamala do it and to tell you that there will be more after her and that they will come from the Howard, the Spelman, the FAMU. It's coming. She's just the start of it. It's an amazing feeling because I'm going to say, hey, I remember when it happened so that when I'm next, I can oh, yeah, I remember that. So I think it's a great thing to be that role model for what's to come.
That is a great place to end it. This is just the start. You all, thank you so much for an excellent evening. You all are just intelligent and wonderful, the best students that this world has to offer. We want to invite everybody to come back to the YouTube page or the Facebook page, wherever you are watching from, because at 7:45, we are going to air a short video from Reverend Otis Moss III about voter suppression. So please, if you've enjoyed this conversation and you want to keep the conversation going, just log right back on, hit your refresh button. We will be right back. Thank you again to these students. Thank you to Dean Richardson and all of the chapel staff for their support. We have had a great night. Thank you, guys. Bye.
I have
resilient faith.
I have resilient faith.
I am voting because it is my right.
Because I know how important it is for me to exercise the rights for which my ancestors fought.
I vote.
I am voting
Because it's my responsibility.
It's my responsibility.
Because issues on the down ticket matter just as much as the presidential election.
because it is
Is my duty.
my right.
My life depends on it.
My vote matters.
Because my voice matters.